Welcome to the Whirlwind. I'm your host, Marco Kidwell.
Do it again. Do it again more convincingly.
Hello, welcome to the Whirlwind. I am Marco Kidwell, and I'm here with Keida Mascaro in the cave.
Wow, that was great. Fuck.
In Los Angeles, California.
Yeah. Not sunny LA. We're getting rain today.
Yeah, we're getting rain today.
First time in a year.
I'm really anxious to see how people on the street react to this because, you know, normally if you talk about rain with a Los Angelian, they're going to say, "Oh, what a bummer," you know. And
now.
Now I think it's going to be, "Oh, I'm so grateful," you know.
Yeah.
So we're talking about religion and politics, and we're going to start out with Frank Zappa on Charlie Rose from an interview that he did, or that they did in 1988.
No, 1978.
No, that's when Pat Robertson ran. The interview was done on.
It was on 80. Sorry, I didn't realize.
Yeah,
I didn't realize he was live then.
Yeah.
All right. It must have been right before he passed because I think he died in 89.
I don't know.
Or 90.
I don't know. But this is a very interesting clip, and it's going to reveal some, not only about Frank Zappa, but also about the way in which politics was conducted at that time. So.
Yep. And what's the other video?
Oh, and the other video is Sam Cedar's Majority Report, and he is discussing the appearance, the speech by the Bishop Mariann Budde that she gave at the National Cathedral for the inauguration of Donald Trump.
That nasty woman.
Yeah.
Nasty.
Yes.
Nasty nun. That's her. That should be her social media handle. Nasty nun.
Yeah.
Hey, we called it. We called it here first.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get started.
All right.
Enough horsing around. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I think this country's turning right.
No, I think that the media is turning right. And I think that many of the people who get into office have gotten in there by wearing a pseudo middle of the road kind of a costume and then lean toward the right when they find out the right is paying the freight once they get into office. Let our minds. Okay,
so did we get to 20? Yeah. I was fairly specific about the time codes, but don't worry about it. It's fine. Yeah. I have personal experience with this. When I was working at JPL, I had an office mate who was a fundamentalist Christian, and her husband was actually a figure in the fundamentalist Christian movement in Los Angeles at that time. And she made it in our discussions, it became clear that the strategy was to appear as a moderate with the agenda of the right, of the fundamentalist Christian right wing, moral majority, I think it was called at that time. And so I just find that really fascinating. And also the point of view that Zappa takes here is that, well, I don't think, we can't know exactly what was in his mind, but the idea that these people were started out as middle-of-the-road candidates and then found themselves in office in a milieu of heavy money influence by the Christian right is wrong. They were influenced before. They knew what they were doing. They were lying by omission. And they got into office on one kind of politics and then switched to another. And people were not paying attention. And so they were able to institute a lot of changes very stealthily that would not have been popular had they been fully exposed or fully known.
Back to the early days right before Reagan made his big run. There was a deal made between the fundamentalist right and the Republican Party, literally purchasing the platform. If you stick the prayer in school on here, if you stick the abortion on here, money, the land of milk and honey will flow in your direction.
Is that any different than politics of the Democratic Party in which...
Okay. money buys politics, and big money buys big politics. And so what Rose tries to do here is to say, well, the Democrats do it too. They have special interests. But I love the way Frank Zappa dispenses with that.
All kinds of different interest groups had certain things they wanted to platform.
It is very different. It is very different because it is so focused and it is so wealthy and it is so protected. There's so much money involved. And I think that it has been the ruination of the GOP.
Yeah. He was about to, the ruination of the GOP. I like, Frank Zappa is a wealthy man at this point in his life. He's a brilliant musician, has many albums, made a fortune for himself. I would classify him as a libertarian. I am not convinced that Frank Zappa wouldn't vote for Donald Trump on the basis that a lot of these libertarian atheists do. And I believe Frank Zappa was an atheist. He might not have felt like being able to say that openly at that time, but I think he probably was an atheist, and that he would think, oh well, Trump is just using the Christian fundamentalists to get elected. He's not going to really follow through on any of their agenda. Now, Project 2025 might have changed his mind, but he's the kind of libertarian capitalist that would have supported Donald Trump in 2016, definitely, more than today.
Oh, I couldn't disagree with you more.
Well, okay.
On that one, I can't imagine. I mean, I've seen a bunch of interviews with Frank Zappa. He was radically anti-establishment, and I don't know that I would classify him as a libertarian. I think he's more like you.
Okay, well, let's go on. You'll see what I mean.
Of the GOP. GOP now has, as they say,
The grand old party.
That's right. Enterprisers on one side and moralizers on the other. I'm with the enterprisers. Let's get get down to business.
You're for Jack Kemp then, on the one hand, when he talks about entrepreneurial activity and all that?
The line is nice, but I'm not for Jack Kemp. You know what I mean? Yeah. What I'm saying is that if you were going to be a Republican, you ought to focus on what Republicans are supposed to be good at, which is let's do business. Okay? Yeah. And I think business is good for the whole world. People like to do business. But when you start trying...
So that's... Now, honestly, I don't know if he is talking for Republicans or if he's talking for himself. Because he starts out saying, Republicans are good at business. It's what they do best. And then I don't know if that little description there was of Republicans or of himself. I don't know. But if it is of himself, that's definitely a libertarian mentality. That's
for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so let's proceed.
Start trying to legislate morality, you got a problem. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked in the past. It won't work in the future.
Yeah, but if anything goes, there's got to be some sense of responsibility, don't you think?
Okay. This is the classic argument that was used initially towards the new atheists in the 2000s. If you get rid of religion, you're going to get rid of the brakes on human behavior. You're going to have anarchy. You're going to have, no one will obey laws unless there's a God ahead in control of your mind. Your mind is just going to take you into amoral behavior or immoral behavior.
You might be a really good person. That's exactly what would happen with me. I'm really if it weren't for Christianity and Buddhism and some meditation, I would be a monster.
Thank you for letting me know.
I would be a fucking monster. Most people I know would be. Amoral.
It seems to not work on the Christians, as we are going to find out very shortly. Okay, go ahead.
There's a difference between responsibility and adherence to dogma. When the dogma becomes legislation, that's when you have the danger. I have this horrible fear that the United States...
Okay. I love this. And this is what lets me know that Frank Zappa was a thinker and not a what's the word I'm looking for? A dogmatist, someone who's just following a line. Mm-hmm. In that the difference between responsibility and dogma. You might adhere to dogma and act out in a responsible way, act out in a moral way, if your dogma is moral. But that's not the same thing as making a conscious choice to behave to make a moral choice consciously, without being forced by threat of heaven and hell, jail, or anything else, that you choose the right thing rather than being forced into it.
So are you saying that you believe in objective morality?
No, I don't believe in objective morality, but I do believe in that there's a difference between following a dogma, which can lead you down all kinds of immoral paths. Or I judge morality by how much harm is done. Do no harm is one of the foundations of my morality. Do no harm. And if your dogma, in service of your dogma, you are willing to do harm, thinking that you are being moral, you are deluded. And I don't care what side of this political spectrum you're on. If you're a leftist, rigidly following Marxism, or a rightist, rigidly following Christianity, you are not acting in a conscious way. You are acting out a formula that you're not thinking about, and that can lead you into some very dark places, and has led both sides of this, of this spectrum into dark places.
It went its way toward being a fascist theocracy. The cross converted into a symbol of fascism in the service of politics. This is bad.
You think that's why Pat Robertson's doing well out there?
So here Frank Zappa becomes, the oracle. He is now predicting.
He's Nostradamus.
Yeah, Nostradamus. Zappa Nostradamus. And the interesting thing about it is this. I would say that he sees a schism basically between what he calls the enterprisers and the moralizers. I don't see that schism. I don't see that they're opposed to one another. That might be good for political theater at the time. Apparently, Pat Robertson was interviewed by another in an interview during his candidacy, where he calls they call him a preacher, and he says that's religious prejudice or religious discrimination. And then Frank Zappa points out, no, he was doing faith healing. He was a televangelist. This isn't prejudice. This is the reality, of Pat Robertson. And so I think it's, I think that but I think he makes a mistake in thinking somehow these are opposing forces, because what religion tends to do and has done for thousands of years is justify the extreme wealth of the very few, the upper class, the ruling class, and the poverty or the impoverishment of the many and the exploitation of the many. It was used in Mesopotamia to organize civilization at its roots, and it's being continued today. And that's what we have today. What we have today is a situation in which the capitalist class is under direct and open criticism. It is not coincidental, to me anyway, that the religious right has risen up to form a distraction, to make its threats, to do its assertion of control in order to counter this attack on the capitalist class.
Damn.
Okay, that's it for Frank Zappa.
Sorry, Frank.
Well, and just to elaborate just a bit more, whether or not Frank Zappa believes this, when he talks about how business is good for the world, everybody loves to do business, this is the dogma of capitalism. This is the assumption of the universality of business and the primacy of business in the world, which fits right in with not with actual scripture, but with intent and a worldview in which you have a set of principles that you make dogmatically applied in the world.
I give him a pass. It was almost 40 years ago. I'm a little biased, though. I love Frank Zappa.
Well, I love Frank Zappa, too, but, you know.
Oh, it doesn't seem like it.
No, wait. Stop. I am not, okay.
Don't defend yourself.
I'm not,
Before we get into this clip, I think...
Okay, so where are we... Actually, I need to do this differently next time. I need to preload all these clips.
Okay.
Next time.
Yeah.
It'll be smoother. All right, so what were you going to bellow out?
I was going to push back against the idea that I didn't like Frank Zappa. I mean, I think if he was a libertarian, yeah, I'll be critical of him. I think he was a good person. I loved his music. I just want to make it clear, I don't hate Frank Zappa. I mean,
it'd be interesting, actually, let me look this up really fast. Let me see if it does say in his Wikipedia if he was a libertarian, because that would be kind of interesting. Because I believe there's got to be something about his politics in here.
Yeah, sure.
And everything I've seen, beliefs in politics, here we go. Government and religion. He was a registered Democrat. A practical conservative is what he considered himself. He favored limited government, low taxes. He approved of national defense, Social Security, and other federal programs, but only if recipients of such programs are willing to and be able to pay for them. He opposed military drafts. He favored capitalism, entrepreneurship, and independent business, stating that musicians could make more from owning their business than collecting royalties. He opposed communism. I'm losing. He even considered running for president. Okay. Zappa was an atheist. His parents were pretty religious Catholic. He discussed organized religion, Christianity in particular. And he said that it promoted, his grievance was that it promoted ignorance and anti-intellectualism. So,
I mean, I'm saying, that is the
kind of like what you categorize them as.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, and believe me, I mean, I have, there's different flavors of libertarianism. There's libertarian socialism. There's libertarian capitalism. And I don't know where he would, it's hard to know where someone will end up. You have to watch that over time.
Yeah, and it's been almost 40 years.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
It's been 30-some years since he died.
Exactly. I mean, the fact that he's a registered Democrat gives lie to the idea that he was a libertarian. But on the other hand, the other beliefs, the atheism and the very strongly pro-business mentality speaks to a libertarianism.
Yeah, but what's interesting about that, though? I feel like libertarians in the 80s would have been more Democrat than Republican.
Yeah.
I think they moved rightward.
Yes. Yeah.
As your generation of assholes moved through life. The more money you guys made, the more rightward.
I being the exception, of course.
Well, you're special, Mark.
Yes. I'm a special kind of asshole.
Marco, the special person.
Okay.
All right, so what are we doing now? All right.
We're going to listen to Sam Cedar. Now, here is the point of, not Sam Cedar. what we're going to do here is we're going to listen to Bishop Mariann Edgar Budde make a plea with Trump during the inaugural ceremonies. This is a particular view of, this is a Christian woman from the Episcopal Church. She is a bishop. I think she's the first woman bishop in that church. And I'm talking about the congregation. I'm not talking about a specific church. I'm talking about the whole movement of Episcopalian, the Episcopalian Church writ large. And she is addressing the president, the President Trump, and in a very courageous way confronts him with Christianity. Play the clip.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here.
Okay.
Bam.
Yeah. So I find
it's too bad we didn't see the awful. Oh, hold on.
They may not be citizens.
It's too bad we didn't see Trump's incredibly awkward body language.
Oh, we're about to see that.
Oh, okay.
We're going to see
that.
Good.
Good.
Yeah. We're going to see that. That's what Sam Cedar is going to show us.
He looked like a guilty dog. He looks like what Rocco looks like when he does something wrong, but he can't help himself.
Yeah. Eating off the table. Yeah. The thing that's interesting about Trump's reaction, beyond what it was in the moment, was his little, Truth Social post afterwards, in which he just repeats all his boilerplate talking points about there are criminals. It's interesting that he doesn't even bother making the distinction between those immigrants that are not criminals and those that are. For him, he's painting with a broad brush, which I find so fascinating. He doesn't feel the need to be liberal about this, and calls her a radical leftist.
He also calls her a nasty woman.
A nasty woman, yes.
I think part of the problem, though, too, and I think the fact that, I'll be honest, when I was watching that, I didn't know if it was a man with a high-pitched voice or a woman. And I'm wondering if there was some transphobia that was wrapped in there, too, because it was that actually was distracting.
Yeah. Well, she kind of dressed and looked like my mother.
Oh, wow. And
my mother was actually, my mother was an attorney here in Los Angeles for practically her entire career. No, for her entire career. She practiced law here in Los Angeles. And at one point during the, at the initial appearance of the women's liberation movement, She stopped wearing dresses to court and she started wearing pantsuits. And she got flack from judges for doing that. And if my mother wasn't so precise and thorough in her practice, she would have suffered because of that. But somehow, she would refuse to back down. She continued to wear makeup, but then she stopped wearing makeup. Well, she'd wear a lot less makeup as time went on, and as she got older. But sign of the times. This woman appears to be, like my mother had short hair like that and wore glasses and was a very modest dresser. So the Sam Seder clip is going to show us the reaction of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and the other members of the family and the entourage, the Trump entourage. And I find it interesting who they focus on more.
Asshole. But I want to also just suggest that as much as he comes off as a petulant child, understand he's the second most powerful person in the country. And by at this point, if you had to handicap anything, he's going to be the next president. This guy, Donald Trump, understands the value of attacking marginalized people for his agenda, which is to enrich himself. But J.D. Vance is a believer. And this, I think you can see it here.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God.
Did I say that?
In the name of our God,
That was a good line.
I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families.
You can't buy the children. Can you believe
Some
she's
who
bringing
fear
up
for their
children?
lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants.
Pause it.
Rolling his eyes.
Rolling his eyes, and he's looking.
Now,
I met that fucker.
did you?
Yeah, in Columbus. He was in a coffee shop. It was right after he moved from DC to Columbus. And it was when I was making that last film I made in Columbus. And I had just read Hillbilly Elegy, which I thought had some value.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was some really interesting. I thought the first two parts, the first 2/3 of that book actually were really insightful. And I went up and introduced myself, and he was such his energy was just like this. It was the weird, weary, didn't, kind of looked up at me like this. It was really strange. And I asked him about the rights to that film, or the rights to his book.
Yeah.
And he had told me, this was in like 2000, I want to say 16. And he told me that he had just sold the rights to Ron Howard.
Okay.
Which was a bummer for us because I was like, this would be a great Ohio film, we were producing films in Ohio at the time.
Yeah.
And, Ron Howard, I'm not going to say no to Ron Howard.
Yeah.
But I remember his vibe was so creepy back then.
Yeah.
And to think that guy is the second most important person in our politics now is mind blowing.
But I want to point out that, as Sam Seder points out, this guy's a true believer. True believer in what? He's a traditional Catholic. He is a convert. And those are always the most...
The worst,
right?
The worst.
They become very, very dogmatic about it because they're trying to prove how Catholic they are. They feel like they have to do that. But he is a Christian. So... yeah, she's a Christian and he's a Christian. So this is a dispute among Christians. The mistake I think that you can make here, whether you're left, right, or center.
Why are you looking at me?
Because you're right in front of me. Okay. I'll look at the camera. Hi, camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. The mistake you can make is to get into the sectarianism of one Christian sect versus another. I lay this catastrophe, this political disaster at the foot of Christianity. I will not let Christianity off the hook. And that's the point I'm trying to make here.
Wow.
Thing is, he's looking to his wife for some type of validation. Like, can you believe this shit? Can you believe that she's bringing up children and migrant workers? And
she's like, there's cameras.
It's like, it's either his wife is just more actually caring, like an actual human being.
Yeah. So, they're dancing around this issue. They're focusing more on personality than on principle. But Sam, I think, has gotten to the point where he is at, if you set up the next clip, I think it starts at 7:04. No, it starts at 12:58. He finally does get to the principle I'm trying to focus on here.
All right, play.
Yeah.
People were so like the idea that first of all, nothing could be richer than a Trump supporter or a Republican saying, how could you mix politics and religion? I mean, honestly.
Yeah, Trump is the prosperity gospel president.
I mean, if there was no mixing of politics and religion, the Republican Party would not exist.
Yeah.
So finally, and we haven't even named the religion here. And I think he avoids it he doesn't want to show a prejudice against one particular religion versus another. But the Republican Party has made that clear. Their choice is Christianity. They even got on Vivek Ramaswamy for having a non-Christian faith system. That became an issue during the campaign, during the primaries. So I find it interesting that Sam Seder finally gets to the point of realizing, religion and politics. And I think he goes on to say that. There's a quote. Let's play some more. I think he actually says it.
To have is like, J.D. Vance's facial hair and Donald Trump's orange spray. There'd be no Republican Party without the mixing of religion and politics. None. Zero.
At the inauguration yesterday, Donald Trump said that he was saved by God to be president again, basically referring to the assassination attempt. He invokes religious iconography and presents himself as a cult leader and almost Jesus-like figure to his followers. It's intrinsic to his appeal.
He was elected the first time around because he brought around Christian evangelicals, because he had basically installed the most powerful theocrat in our nation's history in Mike Pence as vice president. And now perhaps the second most theocratic in J.D. Vance in his Opus Dei.
Now, I would dispute that, but that would take some research. The idea that that J.D. Vance and what was his name? Mike Pence were the most theocratic in American history?
Probably not.
Probably not. It just wasn't as much of an object. You weren't able to say it like that in 100 years ago, even 50 years ago, even 20 years ago. I grew up in LA. I know what it was like to disagree with Christians. My parents, the atheists, told me, don't talk about that because you're going to upset people. And so, the idea that the fact that he can say this publicly is great progress, but he's still tiptoeing around it because he still hasn't named Christianity in particular.
I'm curious, why do you think that's because the very close and winding relationship that culture and religion play together? Because I feel like if I transport myself back 30 years ago when I was an undergrad and I was an anthropology major, I feel like if you dared criticize a religion, you couldn't criticize a religion without the sense that you were also criticizing someone's culture.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. Is that it? And you're talking about that. You said before when we were talking, like using the kid gloves when it comes to talking about religion. Do you think the reticence to do that was because you didn't want to offend someone's culture, or do you think it was something else? I think
it's with Sam. I think it probably. I don't read the man's mind, but I would say that he probably does not want to be attacked for being anti-Christian in particular, and alienating and being he doesn't want to be vulnerable to accusations of prejudice against a particular religion because he's Jewish. Okay, so he is avoiding naming it probably for that reason, I'm guessing.
But back in the day, like when your parents said what they said, was that more about culture or what was it about?
I think it would be, the way we'd express it would be, you don't want to offend people's deeply held religious beliefs. But they're deeply held beliefs.
But is that the same thing as their culture or not?
I think it would be the same as their culture. But I think
because I feel this way about like
But I think that their taste for chocolate ice cream is part of their culture, but this is a special part of their culture that is reserved for protection against any and all criticism because it's so deeply held. My taste in ice cream is open for criticism, but don't criticize my personal beliefs in my God, whom I identify with, whom my ego identify with. You attack God, you're attacking me.
Mm-hmm. I just think it's interesting how it's pretty easy to criticize Christianity in this country. I mean, you have plenty of people that get upset about that, but you have plenty of people that probably more people that side with your criticism.
Yeah.
But if we were to sit here and criticize Islam or criticize Judaism, you definitely have people calling us anti-Semitic or anti-Muslim.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. Well, especially the
anti-Semitism.
Yeah. Anti-Judaism would be equated automatically to anti-Semitism. And I think that we need to I am going to take a principled position about this, and I'm not going to let them off the hook. They influence politics, and we're going to play the last part of this clip in which, we're going to let Sam make the closing statement for this video because he says it all. I will not let them off the hook. I am not going to say, oh, well, some Christians are good and other Christians are bad. This is the no true Scotsman fallacy. A true Christian believes that we should allow immigrants in and have open borders. A true Christian thinks that we need to kick these immigrants out. And that's the difference. No. If you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you're a Christian. Period. So,
Jesus Christ.
And I did. Oh my God. Jesus.
Wow, Mark. Yeah. Who made you the authority?
Yeah. No, that's not me. That's them. Okay. So let's let Sam, finish this off with what
just start here.
Yeah, just start there.
His Opus Dei fundamental Catholicism that he has installed into the vice presidency. But the idea of that you didn't have every megachurch out there running get out the vote programs for Donald Trump is absurd.
Yeah, they should just be demonizing women who get abortions.
But the other thing is that, religion is inherently political. That's the other thing. So, but certainly
that religion is inherently political. And let's see, what do I have down here? So in relation to Christianity, these are the kinds of things that Christians believe. Love and compassion for one another. That's a Christian value. Generosity for the poor and the refugee. That's a Christian value. Eternal damnation for non-belief in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. That's a Christian value. So, this is all over the map, and you have to look at it as a whole and not cherry pick.
What would you say? Would you hold that same philosophy with pulling apart Vedic philosophy from a practice in yoga?
Yeah.
Or meditation?
Yeah, no, everything. I would apply that philosophy to Marxism, to Maoism, to Marxist-Leninism, to anything on the left, any political philosophy.
Veganism,
exactly. Exactly.
Not to punch down on the vegans.
Well, yeah, right. But the thing is that, no, we can punch down on the vegans.
No.
Okay. No, but seriously. You can, if it's what Frank Zappa was talking about, the difference between dogma and responsibility, the difference between which I think he would agree that it's really the difference between following a dogma, treating veganism, treating the paleo diet as a dogma versus science and thinking about it. That's a huge difference.
So are you saying you can't really be a true secular person if you have a defined belief system?
If you're treating it as a dogma, then you're you can call yourself whatever you want, You can call yourself whatever you want, obviously today, but but I think that I am comparing two-way approaches to those subjects, two ways of looking at the world. One is through the lens of dogmatic, rigid belief system. The other is through a scientific or analytical point of view, where you're open to seeing it past a dogma and analyzing and judging it and not becoming attached to it.
But that person, so say that person is Christian.
Yeah.
But they have, it sounds like you're saying secularism.
Yeah.
Right? A secular Christian.
Yeah.
Are you saying that person fundamentally is not different than the person that also believes literally in heaven and hell and all the other bag of stuff in Christianity?
If they propound the notion of heaven and hell and all the rest of Christianity, they are responsible for the effects of Christianity in politics. They're responsible for it, and they need to cope with it. They need to deal with it somehow, either confront it, be willing to criticize it, but don't go into this, they're the wrong kind of Christian, I'm the right kind of Christian. That's what I'm arguing against. And allowing them to do that, allowing them to escape and disassociate from the consequences of their beliefs just because they're cherry picking a nicer, prettier set of what Marx called the flowers in the chain. Remember, we talked about that, where I'm only going to look at the flowers. I'm not going to look at the chain. That's what I'm pointing to. For me, this has been the show, and